So I'm in my late 30s. I have three main clients as a creative director, two businesses I'm trying to start, an IP that I'm trying to get off the ground, and a daughter that I'm obsessed with, and a very heavy rent that I have to pay here in Miami, Florida. That I don't want to talk about that. But a few days ago, I decided to start a YouTube channel. No research, no plan, just a camera, point, face, shoot, talk. And it turns out that there's a word for that, and it's called retardmaxxing. And apparently, some people think this is some new idea. It's to me, that's kinda like discovering the concept of putting on shoes and writing, an article about it. Retard maxing, the concept itself is just doing things without overthinking them. That's the whole philosophy. Some guy put a name on it, and now 22-year-olds on TikTok are having spiritual awakenings about the concept of just doing stuff. But I wanna be very clear about something, right? This is not a new idea. This is just what people did before therapy became a personality trait, right? Before "I'm not in the right headspace" became a valid reason to not do your job. Before grown adults started saying, "I need to protect my peace," to explain why they haven't left their apartment in 4 days. I mean, just think about that for a second. Retard maxing is just called being alive. They gave it a name because the generation that discovered it grew up with so many options, they forgot options require a choice, and choices require action. And action is apparently now philosophy. Ugh, it's just they gave chaos a LinkedIn profile and called it a movement. And that guy selling the courses, and there are courses now, and of course there are courses. Those guys are doing something very specific. They found a way to monetize the space between knowing you should do something and actually doing it, right? That gap, that specific anxious, paralyzed gap. They built a business in there. They put furniture in that gap. They're charging you rent for that location. They're charging you rent on your hesitation. That's actually genius. I'm annoyed about it, but I also respect it. I'm a hustler, I'm a dot connector, but that goes to show you can literally build a business out of anything. And I'm not trying to hate on these people, all right? I am a retard maxer. I am the guy who decided one day to leave my 9 to 5 that was paying me comfy money that I wasn't happy in, that I didn't feel, I didn't, my soul wasn't fulfilled working in, but I became a slave to a tax bracket. And I had to do what I had to do. And I'm the one that decided, hey, you know what? I'm gonna start going on YouTube and looking up tutorials on how to edit on Premiere. I became a creative director without knowing what a creative director was when I took my first job, and I found out what the job title actually meant after I already had the job. That's not confidence. That's selective ignorance deployed at the right moment. That is just like think about it. I had everything. I had the comfy, I had the medical insurance. I have started businesses I did not understand. I have taken meetings about things I had to Google in the Uber on the way there. I once pitched a full marketing strategy for a client in a language that I was still learning while pitching it. And in the meeting, learning the language in the meeting. Did it work? Mostly. I remember one time I was in Puerto Rico and I was working with a very talented artist in the reggaeton world. And he was showing me this cool 3D animation, right? And he was like, "Cabrón, oh, I wish I had something like this, you know?" And I was like, "Yeah, absolutely." I was like, "Well, guess what? I know how to do 3D software. I know how to do stuff like that." He was like, "Really?" I was like, "Yeah, man, I could take care of that for you. I'll do it. I'll handle it." I had no idea. I didn't even know what 3D software you're supposed to use to get this kind of stuff going. You know what I mean? But my confidence and me retard maxing my way to that moment got me a deposit. But what made the situation real was that deposit. I had to deliver a product, and I've never not delivered a product, and I never not delivered a product at a high standard. So, brother, I did not leave my brothers and sisters in Christ. I did not leave my home for a week. Okay, I was YouTubing Blender tutorials. Okay, I basically came up with this concept of uh of creating an ocean because that seemed simple enough to create an animated ocean, and then I came up with this other. I was like, well, how else can I, make this better? You can't, I can't send them a 3D animated ocean. So I learned how to kind of 3D model people's faces and heads, and I did so using photographs, and I placed those modeled heads into the ocean. So it's just like their heads floating in this ocean. And that video now has 6 million or more views on YouTube. I got put in a position, and I made it work. Is that considered a system? Absolutely not. Is there a name for it? Apparently, yes. Forbes wrote about it, which is insane because Forbes also wrote about NFTs, and we all know how that ended. Saying, yeah, I can do that to things that you probably don't know if you really can do. Yeah, that's not lying. That's called aggressive optimism towards your future capabilities. I just didn't know if I could do that yet. I found out in real time with their money, funded by their belief in me. And I used that as a research department to get really good at 3D. I once took a brand deal for a service I never used. I used the service for the first time the next day with their money. That's not fraud, that's timeline management. My family has a word for retardmaxxing. It's not a philosophy, it's not a movement. It's just called what you do when you don't have the luxury of not doing it. My grandfather left Cuba, the only country he's ever known. He left on a plane, but he left with no plan. The plan was get my grandmother, who was pregnant with twins at the time, on a plane, get on that plane, get to New York, and figure the rest out later. That's it. That was his whole plan. I'm here. The plan worked. Not because it was a good plan, but because the alternative to the plan was worse than the plan. He didn't retard max. He just didn't have the privilege of second guessing himself. There's a difference. One is a philosophy, the other is rent. I think that's the dirty secret of retard maxing that nobody in TikTok videos will say out loud. It doesn't work because doing things without thinking is smart. It works because the fear of not doing it is bigger than the fear of doing it wrong. My grandfather wasn't fearless. He was just more afraid of staying than he was of leaving. That is not a philosophy. That is desperation with good timing. You know what Cuban people call a 5-year plan? Optimistic. I've been retard maxing since I was 22. The difference is when I did it, we just called it being broke and not having a choice. Now you do it and you get a podcast deal. Hit me up. Please. And thank you. If you guys like what I'm doing, by the way, like, subscribe. It means a lot. I'm just here talking. I hope we're connecting. Hope I'm making you giggle sometimes. Hope you're getting something from this. Overthinking is just procrastination that went to college and learned how to explain itself. And I'm going to say something else. Analysis paralysis is a rich people problem. Poor people don't overthink. Poor people do not overthink. They think about the wrong things at 3 a.m. That's different. That's not paralysis. That's just no good options and too much time to notice. Shit, man, I know guys who have been working on themselves for so long that the self that they started with is fully expired. The man is gone. You improved him into non-existence. Congratulations, you are who you are now. Who are you now? That's a better question. How soon is now? These guys doing 2-hour morning routines to prepare to do their work, that's like stretching for 2 hours before a 20-minute run. At some point, stretching is the workout, and you never ran. You have a beautiful stretching practice and zero output. You're very limber, but completely irrelevant. Every guy that I know who has a process for making decisions has made fewer decisions than every guy who I know who just does things. The process is the product, and the product is never shipping. The guy who needs retard maxing are the same guys who read reviews for a restaurant for 25 minutes and then order the chicken. You got the chicken tendies. You were always going to get the chicken tendies. The reviews were just saying, the reviews were just you delaying the chicken tendies. The chicken tendies were decided. You just didn't want to admit it. I know a guy who took 9 months to pick a logo color. 9 months. The color's fine. The business is barely open. I picked my logo while parallel parking. It's also fine. We're at the same place, but I have 9 months back. I'm not trying to flex on you. I'm just trying to state the truth. At 39, I started a YouTube channel. I'm going to say it. I'm old. You know what I researched before I did it? Nothing. You know what my content strategy was? I had opinions and this camera that I'm talking to you on. That's the whole strategy. That's the document. That's the business plan. Opinions, camera, go, like, subscribe. I'm just here. I'm here in the studio between edits and I'm filming this, and I did not plan this video. I don't know how it ends. You don't know how it ends. We're finding out together. This is retard maxing. You just watched it happen real time. You're welcome. But here's what this whole retard maxing is actually about, and nobody's saying it. There's an entire industry built on keeping you preparing. Courses, coaches, frameworks, communities, accountability partners, morning routines. I think all of it is bullshit. And I'm not saying that it's all bad, but a lot of it is just monetized hesitation. They found a way to charge you for the thing you do instead of the thing you're supposed to be doing. And the people selling it know something that you don't. Ready is not a feeling. Ready is a story you tell yourself so you don't have to find out if you're good enough yet. I started this channel not ready. I filmed that first video not ready. I became a creative director not ready. I became a dad definitely not ready. None of it waited for me to be ready. And none of it cared. Retard max. Do the thing. Not because you're not scared, because you're going to be scared either way, and one of those versions of scared at least has something to show for it.